to help you understand method number 2 for converting from radians to degrees and vice versa is to remember the relationship in a unit circle. We know that all the way around is 360 degrees, but so that's in degrees, but in radians we know that all the way around is 2 pi. So 2 pi is equal to 360 degrees. When we divide both sides by 2, we get this relationship that really helps us. It helped us find the angles around the unit circle, and that is that pi is equal to 180 degrees. Now, in the case of converting 2 pi over 3 to degrees, we want to move the pi. Like, we want to get rid of the pi in there. We want to keep the degrees. And so the way I want you to think about this is, if we want to get rid of the radians and we want to get degrees, we're going to move the radian measure. So the way it'll make sense here in a second. Moving the radian measure means we're going to divide both sides by pi, and when we divide the left side by pi, we get 1. And when we divide the right side by pi, we just get 180 degrees over pi. So I want you to relate this to getting rid of the radians. And so when we take 2 pi over 3, and we want to get rid of the radians, we're going to multiply by 1 in the form of 180 degrees over pi. It just helps you remember. So basically, to convert from radians to degrees, you multiply by 180 over pi. And look what happens. We cancel the pi's. 3 goes into 180. Think about it as 3 goes into 18 6 times, and 3 goes into 180 60 times. And so then we get, the only thing that's left over is 2 times 60 degrees, and that's equal to 120 degrees. So you might think, oh, I'll just do that every time instead of memorizing my unit circle. That's a bad idea, so don't do that. Try to memorize your unit circle and use this only when necessary. I'm showing you this, and I'm going to show you 3 more examples when you just can't rely on your unit circle. But it's super helpful to know your unit circle, so don't lose sight of that. Anyway, converting 45 degrees to radians, let's use that same relationship, that pi equals 180 degrees. You don't have to do this every time. If you just remember, I'm going to multiply by pi over 180 and when I convert to radians, and I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi when I convert to degrees. So, but the thing that you want to do to remember that is, I want to get rid of the degrees, and so I'm going to move the degrees, and that helps you remember what to multiply by. So if I divide both sides by 180 degrees, I get pi over 180 degrees is equal to 1. So when I take my 45 degrees and I multiply by 1 in the form of pi over 180 degrees, this is the conversion process of getting rid of the degrees and converting to radians. If we when we multiply by pi over 180, we get to cancel the degree symbol even. 45 then goes into 45 one time. 45 goes into 180 4 times. And so 45 degrees is equal to, just like in the last video, is equal to pi over 4. There's a lot more work involved when you use this formula, but nevertheless it works every time. And let's do a couple more examples. Let's do some of the ones you're going to see in the Khan Academy homework are things like this. So convert 23 pi over 20 to radians. And so that's not one of the normal angle measures that we see, so we're going to have to use our conversion. And when we want to get rid of the pi, or when we want to get rid of the radians, we're going to multiply by 180 degrees over pi. So that's going to convert to radians. And so sorry, we're not converting to radians, my bad. We're converting to degrees. It's already in radians. Okay, so hopefully I didn't mess you up. So we're converting to degrees, and we're going to get rid of the pi. And then whenever you see here, you're canceling here, whenever you see a 0 and a 0, so both numbers end in 0, that means you can divide each of them by 10. You just think of it as canceling the zeros. And then now we have a 2 and an 18. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. And we have 9 times 23. And 9 times 23 is 207. So we have 207 degrees. So that would be 23 pi over 20. So that's 207 degrees. And then we'll take a number of degrees and we'll convert it. I said we were going to do 3 examples. We're only going to do 2. So we have 260 degrees. We're going to convert that to radians. I'm laughing at it said radians over here. So we're converting 260 degrees to radians. And so we're going to multiply by, see if you can think about what we're going to multiply by. We're going to multiply by pi over 180 degrees. Again, the degree symbol cancels. The zeros at the end, so we're going to divide top and bottom by 10. So now we have 26 over 18, and 2 goes into both 26 and 18. So 2 divides evenly into 18 9 times. 2 goes into 26 13 times. So we end up getting 260 equals 13 pi over 9. And that's it. The rest of it is practice.